I swear this is super similar to something else Minecraft Origins explained. Today I've got the RPG Origins collection. This is a collection of 6 simple origins that are themed after RPG shenanigans. Starting off with the single impact origins, we start off with the Knight, a powerful knight. You're used to being on the front line in battle and you're always ready to make sacrifices. Let's get into the abilities. Durable, you're more durable than others and you always take less damage. Overall, it just means you take less damage from a majority of sources. It's kind of like instead of taking a heart and a half from a husk, you take only a heart of damage, which can definitely be very useful in situations as you're more likely to win a fight because they're not going to be able to kill you as quickly as normal. Large appetite, you exhaust much quicker than others, thus requiring you to eat more. Whilst definitely draining far faster than usual, it's not like an insane pace that becomes very concerning. It's just something that you just have to be a little bit more aware of, that your hunger is going to drop a little bit quicker than normal. Prepared, you're always prepared, so you start the game with a free shield. When you first load into the world with this origin, you'll have a shield in your offhand automatically, but whenever you die, you'll drop this shield and you will not respawn with a new one, meaning you will need to reclaim the one that you had beforehand. Basically, it's an item that you will only be given on your first life, and then beyond that, you just have to pray to God you don't lose it. Trained, you train so hard that no matter what, you'll deal more damage. You do overall more damage, which will be far more useful in the earlier game when you have far more weaker weapons, as for example, you can take down a husk with only 3 critical hits with an iron sword, which is pretty damn useful. Next we have the cleric. You're there to heal and help others. You'll rarely be seen directly attacking others. Let's get into the abilities. Village friendly. Since you're the same class as one of the villagers, you're favored by them. Basically, you have permanent hero of the village level 1, which is stupendously useful, especially in the early game if you're playing around with villagers, as you get a bunch of free stuff thrown at you by these villagers. Not the strongest. You aren't the strongest of the bunch, so you have 3 less hearts in total. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. You have about 7 hearts. It's nothing really to care too much about, except for the fact you should be a little bit more wary of the damage that you're taking. Brewer, you experience in potion making, so speed, regeneration, jump boost, and strength last longer. So whenever you drink any of these potions, you'll gain a 50% duration boost on whatever the time of that potion effect is supposed to last. So for an 8-minute duration ability, it'll go up to 12 minutes instead. For about a 2-minute or less than 2-minute ability, it'll go up to 220 instead. Overall, it's a very nice, useful boost to have, especially when it comes to those more potent effects such as regeneration 2, strength 2, and speed 2. It seems like there's a bit of an issue with jump boost not quite being affected by this change, quite like the other ones, but overall a very neat boost. Heal pool, you can summon a pool of healing on command that affects every mob. Whenever you use this ability, you'll drop a regeneration lingering potion that will last for around 10 seconds. This will not affect mobs such as zombies or any other form of undead mobs in any way, shape or form. It's just overall a useful boost of healing that anyone can take advantage of as long as they're inside the lingering potion effects. Now we move on to our 2 impact origins, starting off with the Mage. You're a mage who can always find the magic in things. Let's get into its abilities. Fast Cure, you're immune to poison, weakness and slowness. Overall really useful considering that weakness, slowness, and poison is some of the more common effects you'll take. Of course, you'll still have to worry about the wither effect whenever you go into the nether and fight wither skeletons, but most of the other annoying effects that can be thrown upon you by, let's say, witches are not going to affect you whatsoever anymore. Just be wary of instant damage. And hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. I cover Origins for most of my content. I've got some cool ideas that will be happening sometime throughout this year. So yeah, also make sure to leave a like. Let's get back into the video. Not the strongest. You aren't the strongest of the bunch, so you have 3 less max hearts. Literally duplicate of the previous origin, you got 3 less hearts, just be very wary of what damage you're taking. Fireball, you can shoot a fireball in the direction you're facing. Interesting how spells can do that, what a description. It is effectively just a gas fireball with an extraordinarily long cooldown. Pretty useful, except for the fact that it's got a cooldown that's pretty much a minute long, if not longer, good god. Water Walk, you learn to harness the power of the Heart of the Sea, so while you hold it you can walk on water. So whilst you're holding a Heart of the Sea, you'll just walk on water. It's pretty interesting. Now, some of the weird technicalities of this is because of how it works, you're slightly immersed into the water, you can't actually sprint. So in theory, it might still be faster just to swim in the water by sprint swimming, but it's still a pretty interesting quirk nevertheless. Also, a little weirdness that comes along with it, if you're actually directly in the water and then equipped to the Heart of the Sea, you'll just sink directly to the bottom of the water and you can't float back up until you're no longer holding the Heart of the Sea. So a little bit of funny quirks there for you. Unwieldy, since you're only trained in magic, all damage that you deal is weaker. Wait a minute, this is not the definition of unwieldy that we're used to, isn't it? Usually you can't use a shield. Oh my god, he changed it up. What a madman. But yes, you deal decreased damage. This isn't a massive decrease in damage. It's definitely going to be more noticeable in the early game where you got weaker weapons, but at the end game, it's not really that noticeable. It will take you one extra crit hit with a Neverite Sword to kill a Husk, unlike normal, which is a little bit of a noticeable change, but it's not massive. Next, we have the Archer Origin. You're great with bows and crossbows, but it comes at a cost. Let's get into the abilities. Marksman, you're a trained professional in bows and crossbows, deal significantly more damage with them. I mean, you're not joking when it says significantly more damage, because you are really brutal with a bow. If you land a shot correctly with a max charge bow, you can effectively one-shot mobs such as Husk or zombies, like the middle range mobs that you can find commonly. Crossbows are close to being the same. Imagine when you enchant them, you'll pretty much just be able to put out so much power it's not even funny. Bows are so damn useful for you to have because it's the sheer amount of damage output that you have with them. Not the strongest. You aren't the strongest of the bunch, so you have 3 less maxed hearts. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting different results every single time. I'm sorry, I had to make something out of that, but yep, same ability as the past 2 origins. I mean, what else did you expect at this point? Inexperience. Due to only being trained for using a bow, you can barely use a sword. From basic testing, your damage is effectively halved. This is a far more major damage decrease in comparison to the previous origin, as instead of it just being a slight decrease, this is like you effectively do half the amount of damage as usual. Normally it takes 2 crits from a Neverite Sword to kill a Husk. With this origin it takes 4. That's pretty major. Just in all rounds, regardless of it be early game or late game, that's a pretty major damage decrease. Moving into the triple impact origins, we have the Thief. You're sneaky and fast, always ready to steal from those who you dislike. Now you better not dislike this video because of that. Let's get into the abilities. Speedy, you're faster than normal. This just effectively means you've got a permanent speed 1 on you at all times. It's pretty useful, especially considering it's still sprint jump to great effectiveness, and overall it's just nice and handy having a nice boost of speed. Stealthy, whenever you crouch you can't be seen. Now this ability is very interesting because with most invisibility type abilities that Origins come with, usually this also effectively disables the use of a mob's AI to detect you, unless you get too close to them. Most of the time it requires you to touch a zombie and they'll actively actually go after you, especially if you do hit them. With most other mobs, they don't really seem to detect you in any way, shape or form, except for in this one. This one, you don't need to even touch them. If you just simply go into general vicinity of a zombie, it will immediately detect you and start chasing after you. It's a bit of an interesting ability because it does make it so it's a little harder for you to be detected by mobs, but at the same time, it's not anywhere near as good as other invisibility abilities that come with other origins. Unwieldy, the way your hands are formed provide no way of holding a shield upright. Oh my god, it's the OG Unwieldy. Who would have known? I mean, you already know this ability already. You can't use a shield. Oh no. Better unnoticed. You rather not be seen since you sacrifice health for speed. You have 2 less hearts than usual. So yeah, you have 8 hearts instead of 10. Go figure. Honestly, it's a pretty interesting way of describing why you would have this disadvantage here. Take away a little bit of your health because hey, you got speed instead. Because you're trying to not get in these conflicts, especially if you have been seen, you just want to get out. Uneasy alliance. You and the pillagers have known each other, but not well enough for them to let you live. Whenever you kill an iron golem in a village, it will start a raid. This is honestly quite an interesting ability, and it's nice. I do think it's somewhat unique considering I haven't seen another origin have any form of different type of event triggers like this one here, where it's instead of having to trigger a raid via killing pillagers and getting the bad omen on you, you just go up and kill an iron golem whilst you're inside of a village, and then that's a raid going. This could potentially be a bit broken in some cases, but at the same time I think it's quite cool. Thiefy, whenever you kill a villager, why would you? You can steal some emeralds. Now this ability is quite interesting, so it doesn't add a loot table to villagers whatsoever. Instead it gives you an ability that every time you kill a villager, you'll gain about 3 emeralds. The con is that this takes about 1 minute and 30 seconds to cool back down before you can use the ability again. Meaning you can really only kill 1 villager every few minutes to get 3 emeralds, which unless you've got a villager breeder, I don't believe that's going to be that profitable, because in the long term, especially if you just slaughter villagers for a living, you'll either end up being on the bad side of a lot of iron golems, or you'll just have to deal with absurdly increased prices. Then we have the Brute, your heavy hitting machine with an arsenal of axes. Let's get into the abilities. No time to rest, you can only heal naturally while you're sprinting. This is honestly a really interesting mechanic because it's not like it just disables natural regeneration entirely and gives gives you some regeneration effect whenever you're running around. No. It disables the natural regeneration except for when you're sprinting. That's when it gets enabled, and then you can naturally regen. Honestly, a little bit of an interesting way of doing that. Now, as I said, I expected you just to be given a regen effect whilst running that will just slowly increase your health, but no, it's actually, that's pretty cool. Unwieldy, the way your hands are formed provide no way of holding a shield upright. It's unwieldy, you know what this is by now. Strong arms, you're strong enough to break natural stones without using a pickaxe. This one's also interesting, as instead of taking the usual approach that a lot of Origins do and just gives you the ability to gain cobblestone out of stone when you mine it by hand, it actually also increases your speed, so it's worthwhile to do so and skipping the wood pickaxe entirely. It also allows you to naturally do any form of stone that would spawn naturally in the world, including andesite, diorite, and granite will be able to mine as quickly, and you also pick it up by hand, just it doesn't work with things such as cobblestone, which is always an interesting quirk, but that's perfectly fine. Next is select targets. You are stronger against mobs with a great amount of health, but are weaker against mobs with lower health. This ability is very interesting to say the least. So with any form of weaker mobs, you will deal a little bit less damage than what you usually would. Now this isn't exactly going to be a massive game breaker when it comes down to it, because even with an iron sword, I can still kill a husk very quickly, but the biggest thing you'll start to notice is when you verse things such as iron golems, your damage is a lot more than before. For example, going via human damage with a Netherite axe against an iron golem to the brute's damage on with a Netherite axe and an iron golem, it takes the brute 4 crit hits, whilst it takes the human 8 crit hits to kill an iron golem. That's major. Effectively speaking, with bigger, more bulkier mobs, the mobs with more health, you do a lot more damage proportionally. With an iron golem, you do roughly around 2 times. And I do think this is one of those things that it scales the amount of extra damage you do based upon the actual health of the mob itself. You're probably going to do more damage on an ender dragon than what you will do on an iron golem, which is ultimately something very interesting and makes it so that this origin is definitely going to be an interesting one to make use of. Sturdy skin. Without wearing armor, your skin provides natural protection. Basically, you have 8 armor points by default, which is stupendously useful in the early game. Overall, RPG Origins is a very interesting pack/collection because some of the lower ends ones, some of like the lower impact Origins aren't exactly massively game breaking or game changing things that you would expect. Like, it's pretty similar to other Origins in the same variety, but when you get to the 3 impact Origins, they're actually a lot different and do have some really interesting ideas that I feel like are pretty good for what they are. Definitely could have been executed in a lot better ways in some examples, but overall, really cool Origin collection. If you want something like the medieval Origins, but you don't want the absurd collection of Origins that come with that, or you want something like D&D classes, but not having it as an extra layer, more as like the main thing for your Origins. Overall, a really good one. Check it out on CurseForge with the link down below, and click this video on screen now, and until next time guys, bye bye!